Thank you very much.
We're going to move to the Global Partners application. I'll be recusing myself.
Okay, we will open the public hearing for Global Partners. There will be no decision made tonight. The decision will be made at the September meeting. And we will open it for, we would like to have new comments or questions. And we would like to have people who haven't spoken before. And I will ask anybody has a question or a comment, come up to the podium and please state your name so we can get it on record. Okay, Dave?
Yes, your full name?
Hi, David Finker. I'm a resident here in town, and I'm a former councilman on the town board, and I'm currently the chairman of the Columbia County Economic Development Corporation. Some months ago, we wrote a letter to the planning board. I'd like to read that tonight for into
Excuse
the
me,
public.
is your mic hot?
That mic is for the stenographer.
Recording,
That's the only mic?
We can't
You
hear
can't hear me? I'll try and speak up. Anyway, to Phil Schmidt, Chairman, Livingston Planning Board, Livingston, New York, regarding the Global Partners LP application for the cafe, market, and gas station. Dear Chairman Schmidt and the members of the Livingston Planning Board, it is with great pleasure that I'm writing you in support of the Global Partners LP application submitted by Bowler Engineering to construct a 24-hour gas station, convenience store, and Allentown Fresh Cafe at the northern intersection of routes 9, 9/8, and 23 in the town of Livingston. CEDC, Columbia County Economic Development Corporation, is the lead economic development organization in Columbia County, New York. Our mission is to strengthen the area's tax base through economic development and job creation, to assist business, locate, and expand within the county, and to promote Columbia County as a premier spot for both business, investment, and personal opportunity. As the lead economic development agency in Columbia County, CEDC supports the expansion and resulting economic benefits to the county in the construction and operation of this new facility. We believe this new modern facility can be developed in accordance with New York State Department of Environmental Conservation and the town of Livingston's environmental and regulatory requirements. The Global Partners LP project would provide the area with a modern and and safe, environmentally friendly facility. CEDC is supportive of the project and urges that this application receive your favorable consideration. Thank you very much. We really do support this. I think it's a really good thing for the town of Livingston, and I live right here in town. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yes?
Thank you. My name is Armand Donnellian. I'm a resident of Greenport, just about a mile from the proposed site. And I have written a letter. I'd like to read it. It's not too long. And first, I want to thank the board very much for your time and service. I realize that your job is difficult, and your decision will affect our lives and the lives of our progeny for generations to come. On February 9th, March 2nd, April 9th, and July 4th of this year, I wrote to the board to express my concerns about the Global Partners project, many of which have been clearly articulated by David Gordon, attorney for Livingston Concerned Citizens, in his recent letter to you that you all have. However, in addition, I feel compelled to add that I'm concerned that the board not be fooled by Global Partners' corporate branding of this project as a fresh food venue. In truth, it is a large, ugly, and harmful gas station accompanied by a redundant convenience store intended to compete with nearby Hannaford's that already provides popular, fresh, to-go items. Rather than abandoning the Extra Mart filling station and its well-liked sit-down diner, while erecting a monstrous monument to dying petroleum technology at the Bells Pond site, the board would better serve the community by negotiating with global partners to renovate and expand the Extra Mart. My wife and I have driven by Extra Mart at all hours of the day and have never seen the gas pumps fully occupied. Why do we need more? There is already a mega station at the corner of Route 9H and Route 66 with plenty of room for trucks. Global Partners does not live in this neighborhood nor really care for what is good for us. If they wanted to be good neighbors, they could upgrade the Extra Mart with state-of-the-art fueling technology while investing in an electric vehicle technology charging station, for example, at Bells Pond by taking advantage of available state and federal incentives. Furthermore, we are all on the same team. Comments offered for public review are not crackpot attacks, but valid concerns, not the least of which, frankly, is the conduct of some board members at public meetings as documented by on several occasions by video. I expect the board to be fair and clear-minded in upholding the law and accountable to no one except the community as they consider and evaluate all the established facts. In conclusion, I'm not against progress. However, thoughtful development requires balancing legal, environmental, economic, technological, and aesthetic concerns. The board must not only issue a positive environmental declaration that Global Partners meets all of these qualifications, but also the board should be convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that the Global Partners project will create an asset and not a liability for our community, both today and into the future. How this is decided is ultimately a process of many skillful steps by many caring individuals over time. It requires patience, tenacity, wisdom, and goodwill in the interest of genuine progress rather than its illusion, or even worse, pandering to backroom interests. I support the board in their difficult decision-making process, and I hope that everyone here tonight also supports you, because in the end, you are all we've got. Thank you very much.
I'd like to go on.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm Kim Keel with Global Partners, and I do live in the community. I've been here for 28 years, and I work for Global. Global has been part of the Livingston community since 1990. We were a third-generation family-run business. We're one of the largest convenience store locations in the Northeast. We offer diverse food, a little bit different than the Hannaford's Market. Again, we're here tonight. We'd like your feedback. We welcome your input. We've completed our full environmental assessment form, and we've earned the public support tonight. We have the Columbia County Chamber here. We have the Economic Development Corporation here, and Ginsberg Foods. So, without further ado, I'm going to pass that on to public or Rob.
Any other questions? Yes.
So my name is Jonathan Gould, and I live in Livingston. I want to address a couple of things relating to this application. One thing I've been a little confused about is some of the level of antagonism or controversy that has attached itself to this. At the first public hearing that I attended, there were people who were attempting to characterize this new market, or rather this new gas station, as a truck stop. And in the course of that presentation, things were said about trucks and about trucking that made other members of this community, whose lives are dependent on trucks and trucking, feel so defensive that they had felt a need to get up and basically defend their livelihood. At the second public hearing that I attended, a gentleman who's lived in this community for a long time got up and basically stated that he felt that this entire proceeding, I'm quoting now, was a bunch of crap. And when he said that, a portion of the room broke into applause, including a member of the planning board, actually, who applauded that sentiment. And as somebody who's worked on planning boards myself, I wondered why would anybody here, why would anybody serve on a planning board, why would anybody attend public meetings like this one if they thought this whole process was a bunch of crap? But that same person went on to make an interesting point. He talked about the new forms of economic activity that exist in our town. He talked about the greater numbers of Airbnbs and wedding venues and things like that. And he said that with all of these new visitors coming into our town, we don't give them anything. And what he meant by that, of course, was that he was saying we don't provide them with any facilities that they can use or that they want. So the thing that I want to talk about tonight has something to do with that. I don't think that people come to Livingston or to Southern Columbia County for our gas stations. That's not why they come here. They come here because this is an extraordinarily beautiful place. And the reason it's an extraordinarily beautiful place is that it is an agricultural landscape that has been preserved for hundreds of years. For much of that time, it was preserved by farmers who farmed this land and took care of this land as if their lives depended on it, which they did, basically. Many of those farms are no longer with us, but we still have this agricultural landscape. And it's the beauty of this place that causes people to come here. And it's the beauty of this place which is the basis of the economy here in many ways. The planning board, you folks, are given a lot of power by the zoning law to determine the aesthetics of commercial development in this town. I'll send you a chapter and verse of that separately. I'm not going to quote it all here. But there is a lot of information, or there are a lot of mentions in the zoning law, and I'll just cite a few of them. General intent of the zoning law, to preserve and protect the basic rural agricultural nature of the town. Objectives of the zoning law, to preserve, protect, and enhance the agricultural nature and viability of the town, to enhance the aesthetic aspects throughout the entire community and maintain its present character and natural beauty. This goes on in some of the specific information about site plan review that's there to guide you in terms of what you do. So I'm not really here to talk in favor of this project, and I'm not really here to talk against this project. I'm here to talk about this project. I will leave it to the board and to the hydrologists to determine whether this new gas station sitting over the aquifer is somehow more dangerous or less dangerous, more of a threat to the aquifer than the old gas station, which already exists across the street. That's not what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is the aesthetics of this proposed development. And I want to encourage you to address that. Now, the applicants are going to say, we're just here for a special use permit. We will address the aesthetics of the building, the elevation, all of that sort of thing under site plan review. And there's some validity to that idea, because this special use permit will be followed, if it's granted, by a site plan review. But the only problem with that is if there are serious concerns about the design of the building and the design of the application as it now exists, I think you owe it to the applicant to make it very clear to them that under site plan review, if you choose to separate the two, and you don't have to separate the two, you can do the two things at the same time, the two reviews at the same time. But if you're going to grant them a special use permit, I think you owe it to them to make it very, and you have serious concerns about the aesthetics of this building and this project, I think you owe it to them to make it very clear that this is something that that the board intends to address in a comprehensive way under site plan review. Now, what am I talking about? What I'm talking about is this. I've seen the elevations of this building. I've seen the design of the project. This is a standard piece of commercial roadside architecture. It has nothing to do with anything that exists in our town except the other examples of standard roadside architecture that have been allowed to be built here. What we should have, what would be a benefit to this community, would be a gas station that looks like it belongs here. That's designed in such a way to minimize the mass of it. It's designed in such a way to enhance the architecture of it. That looks like something that belongs in this beautiful agricultural landscape that we have. And I would like to suggest that any capable architect, given sufficient resources, could come up with something that would look like it belongs here. That would not just be a building that would not just be an advertisement for itself, which is what we are currently confronted with in this design. And I also want to suggest that you have the considerable power in the zoning law to require that of these folks. They'll do it if you make them do it. If you say this design is not acceptable, we want a building that looks like it belongs. We want a building that's designed by an architect who's looked at the architecture of this town and has come up with something, as I say, that looks like it belongs here. That includes the building, that includes the canopy, and includes the landscaping. And there's one other thing that I want to point out in the zoning law. It says 4.20 landscaping. In connection with the review of any site plan application for a non-residential use abutting or directly across the street from a residential district of property, a buffer strip of landscaping may be required along all such property lines. And then it goes on to talk about what that buffer strip needs to be. So the main point I want to make here is you have the power to require these folks to produce a beautiful building that looks like it belongs here. It's minimized the bulk and mass of the building, whatever the square footage of it may be. The other thing I want to talk about, and then I'll stop, is what happens to the current gas station property. The applicant has said that they're going to put a deed restriction on it to prevent it ever operating as a gas station again. So we know that the type of site plan that would be required for a gas station isn't necessary. I was very dissatisfied by the presentation at the last hearing about what they intend to do with that property for the time being. And what I like to suggest you have the power to compel them to do is this. You have the power to say to them, you're going to be left with a commercial building of X square footage. We want you to preserve the amount of parking that you need, that's allowed by the zoning law for that commercial use, for that square footage. And we want you to reclaim the rest of that property. We want you to regrade it, we want you to seed it, we want you to landscape it. So what we will have, what we'll be trading essentially is the gas station across the street for a little bit of green space on that corner, because there's no reason whatsoever that that entire property, that entire V-shaped property that is currently occupied by the gas station should be available for parking or anything else. It's unnecessary, they don't need it. So make them do some work there. Make them make that look like something, even as they're preserving the commercial use of that site. Those are the two main concerns I want to address, and I hope that you will consider using the power that's available to you. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Good evening, my name's Mary Evans and I live in Livingston and I used to live in West Taconic. so I'm a big Southern Columbia County fan. I agree with the prior speaker's desire to try to have something that's great for this community, something that will fit in, something that has a very new element. I consider this proposed plan a truck stop because the fundamental difference, in fact, the only really true difference between what the current Extramart is and what they want is 5 spaces where trucks can park 24/7. And I have a question that has not been answered. We have learned from these very helpful meetings that there is a New York State law that says you cannot idle a diesel truck for more than 5 minutes. Not too enforceable, but at least it's on the books. But my question is, from what I understand, by the way, I'm not against truck drivers. To question the appropriateness of something this huge in a new place is not being against truck drivers and trucks, and they're part of the blood of the stream of this nation and our commerce. I mean, so please don't try to question the motives of people like me who have genuine concerns. So my question is, these trucks have a cab where the drivers sleep. And I have been told, and I don't know, that all of these cabs have an internal combustion engine that either produces coolness or heat. And a lot of truck drivers like to sleep during the day and drive at night when there's no traffic. So this project to me has the, and I would hope the planning board would want to know the answer to this because I do. Is there any regulation about idling an internal combustion engine on a truck? Or are we allowing the potential of, you know, five spaces holding trucks 24/7, spewing stuff that makes air pollution, something that threatens the health of us all, no matter how we feel about this place? And I just think, from what I understand, what's going to be voted on, it's only, does Global Partners have to give more information and have like a closer look taken at their environmental, you know, statements, or not? We're only asking for more information about this community, which we know better than Global Partners. Why are they so obsessed with not doing a full environmental review? That's what we're considering now. Why are they so afraid of it if this is such a wonderful, you know, project that's going to help Livingston and Columbia County? And I note that it's great that the Columbia Economic is here with Ginsburg, but do we all remember the recent scandal where the commission gave Ginsburg money that the county had spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on for free, and like changed the zoning so they could build this monstrous high-rise? We don't want backdoor deals in Livingston. The wonderful planning board is protecting our interests. As an earlier speaker said, you're all we have. This is it. Why not? Why would you not want to get all the information that a more complete environmental review would require, so then we can decide the kind of world we want our grandchildren and beyond to live in? Please give us the information. Don't fight it. Let us find out what works best for everyone. And I thank you all for being here and caring, no matter what side you're on.
Okay, I have some information. This is off the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation on heavy-duty vehicle idling law. New York State Environmental Conservation Law prohibits heavy-duty vehicles, including non-diesel and diesel trucks and buses, with a gross vehicle weight rating of more than 8,500 pounds from idling more than 5 minutes at a time. The idling regulation is enforced by DEC officers, not the state police. And you will maybe fined $500 to $18,000 in case of the first violation. Exceptions are stuck in traffic, idling for maintenance purposes, powering an auxiliary function or apparatus such as a ready-mix truck, involved in an emergency situation. A diesel fuel truck operating in an ambient air temperature below 25 degrees for more than 2 hours may idle. And also, there is a higher temperature that they can run their air conditioning units if it's over a certain air temperature. Now, trucks since 2007 have emission controls. I know you people have seen your check engine light come on in your vehicles. And they also have DPF, diesel particulate filters for regeneration, which acts like when their muffler system gets a certain soot load, it goes into a regen mode, which squirts diesel fuel into this catalytic converter DPF system and burns the soot off into an ash. Now this will last this so long before the DPF unit has to be cleaned out of the ash. Now, starting in 2011, they started using DEF, which is a urea, which is squirted into the exhaust system to help with this. And these trucks, if the DPF light comes on, they have to regenerate. Some of them will do it over the road, some of them have to do it stationary. But it's not like your car where you can keep running it with your check engine light on. If this DPF comes on and you don't take care of it, the truck actually shuts off and will not run until the situation is taken care of. And there's all sorts of, there's Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, and Tier 4 emission standards. Now this year, Tier 4 is went to off-road equipment, which they do the same thing. Now even farm tractors have the same setup, if they're new. So that's the emission law. If you want to look at it, just go under federal, you can go under the federal site or the New York State site.
Thank you for that information. I would ask our attorney to see, I hear wording in there where maybe if there's a separate engine that's not diesel providing heating and cooling, that would have no regulation. It could still, that engine could be in a diesel
Well, some of them
powered
have portable
truck.
generators on. You shut the truck off and the portable generators run the heating systems.
Right, so that's
Or else there are battery
right. Is there any
battery
regulation?
systems which are recharged during the day so they can use them at night.
Right, so my concern is still possible. People could be running generated cool or heat unregulated in terms of amount of time. And that is a concern.
Well, if it's battery,
Yeah.
instead of gasoline.
No, but it generates the same.
If anybody wants to speak, you have to get up and come to the podium. Joey?
How you all doing? My name is Joe Johns. I've lived in Livingston all my life. I operate the farm up here with my brother, okay, John's Maple Hill Farm. Okay, I'm also the fire chief in the town of Livingston. This question this lady's asking about the small motors on the side of the trucks. These are mostly diesel motors, okay? Anything from 2007 on is a clean burning motor, okay, engine. That means that the exhaust coming out, it has to be cleaner than the air you breathe. Okay, 2007, we're in 2019, okay? So the issue that you're talking about, the air in the government has made it, United States government, if you want to talk about President Obama or Bush, whoever one thing, EPA has made it so the engines in these trucks are cleaner burning than what you breathe since 2007. So you're looking at, you're painting a picture of 1964, of the smoke coming out of the back of the stacks and everything else. If you're really worried about it, come up to my house, across from the Apple plant. They run reefers there every night. At one time, they ran 23 of them for 60 days, okay? This is not going to happen up to this gas station, okay? Another issue, we keep hearing about truck stops. One of the biggest things when I looked at the plans as a fire district was the concern of the trucks parking alongside the road on Route 9 and 82, okay? people pulling out of the gas station can't see, or the truck drivers walking across the street and getting a cup of coffee. It could be a 10-wheeler, it could be a cement truck, it could be a tractor trailer. The fire district said to the planners, hey, put a couple parking spots in there, to park your trucks in there to get your gas and get them off the street. I also sat on the planning board for a short period of time, okay? I've dealt with hazardous material, okay? There's been statements made here about contamination and how it's going to be cleaned up, everything. DEC is going to have a special crew come in here and go through that other old gas station, and all the records are going to be taken care of, okay? They're not going to pollute the new gas station and just dump gas over the barrel. They can get X number of dollars for pumping gas, okay? I've been all over New York State in the last, I would say, 60 days. I see new Stewart's here. I see new Cumberland Farms here. All upgrades. We're getting the newest safety stuff for the fuel. We're getting better parking around these new gas stations. Design, I agree with this gentleman right here. Design it right, okay? Make it look to fit in our community, okay? But I hear all these statements about the water's going to be polluted and other stuff. There is Alvarez Mobile Home Park. There's Hannaford. There is the gas station itself. The other mobile home park. They all get their water tested all the time. Has anybody showed up a contamination? Go to New York State. Go to the health department in Hudson. Okay, it's on record. That has to be tested by law. Okay. I agree with some of you people here. We want the best gas station for our area. But don't sit here and say this is not good for us. Okay. The other gas station. Okay. That won't be there empty very long. Okay, that's a hot corner. Okay, and if you want to start looking around about how we're going to leave that gas station, why don't we go down the road a little further and see about some people in this room, how they left their property. Okay, and also look at the tax revenue we're going to get off that. Okay, because I will tell you all in this room, there's going to be a big tax increase coming down the road very shortly. Okay, because none of you want to volunteer for the fire companies. We already lost the ambulance squads. Okay. And when you talk about paid firemen, you guys don't have enough money. I live in this community. I volunteer in this community. My parents volunteer in this community. Okay. I say, build it. Build it right. Okay. It's not a truck stop. The reason why we got parking spots in there, because we want to get the truck traffic off the road. Okay. The accidents all been there. All the accidents. Okay. I've been there. I've handled them. Okay, truth of the matter is, don't take this wrong, people. It's like the speed, you don't want to pay attention, and you run the light. That's all the accidents been up there. Run the light, speed, and our traffic has increased in town, okay? Property values, they're not going to go down. That was another issue here, property values. I can't even afford to buy land in Columbia County or town of Livingston, okay? Property values are not going down, okay? I say build it, I support it, and a lot of people in this town support it. And I also agree with this gentleman here. Build it right. Thank you.
I'm Paul Rubin. I'm a hydrogeologist. And I'd like to follow up on some of the comments that a couple speakers ago made on the secret process and how we are not completely following the secret process. And how we're not following the secret process. Anyway, I'm here on behalf of Alfred and Betsy Scott, who are the owners of the Rock Ridge Stud Farm. That's part of an agricultural landscape, as you're aware, with views of the Catskill Mountains across Route 9H. In terms of the special use permit that we're here, application we're here to discuss tonight, I would suggest that it not be approved, or at least at this time be put on hold. Why? Because sufficient hydrologic and geologic testing and evaluation has not been conducted to support a conclusion of no adverse environmental impact. For example, no hydrogeologic testing has been conducted on the site. And that's just an example. I go into more detail in both letters that I provided to the board, but we shouldn't be here considering approving a special use permit on a project where we don't even know how fast the groundwater goes, how thick is the aquifer, which direction does it flow. We haven't proven any of the hydrogeologic material. How many aquifers are there? There's no discussion of that in the report. Yet what limited discussion there is shows that there's a very thin sand, highly permeable layer above sort of a less permeable horizon with a relatively thin water table. And what that means is any contaminants that get into the ground through the mitigation systems that they propose has a high risk of rapidly and directly impacting down gradient wetlands and waterways. So one of the interesting things that the 2014 zoning law of Livingston states, quote, "The planning board shall review the application and determine the process of compliance with the State Environmental Quality Review Act. Many issues required in the secret evaluation have not been addressed." So in my letter, which I handed tonight, I talk about some of these issues, and I address how they should be addressed within a secret context. Okay. Another issue besides the hydrology and geology that is really important to the stud farm, horse farm across the street from this, is how will it impact the value of their land. The fellow who runs the horse farm came before us here on another night and explained how he gets his animals and sells them, breeds them internationally. And a lot of the clients he gets come because they like Columbia County. They like that natural landscape. They like to see the Catskill Mountains. So in terms of the impact to the value of the land and the breeding situation, he's rightly concerned. And yet, if we were to do a full secret assessment, there are parts of it that address community character. I go into details in my letter. All of these are things that need to be addressed and haven't been addressed. So we're really not in a position to prove this. So I guess you might say, in part, a key issue is one of compliance with New York State DEC and Columbia County Department of Health standards and regulations versus potential impacts. So yes, one could build a gas station there. A gas station poses a high contaminant risk hydrogeologically. You go to any gas station, you look at the pavement before a rain, it's multicolored contaminants. You look at the septic systems and these things, these regularly fail. So what do you want in this town? Do you want a high land use with a high risk that might impact wetlands? Or is there a better land use that you might best consider and not have a special use permit for this particular use? So I would say here, the manner in which Global Partners seeks approval of a special use permit precludes comprehensive assessment of many important environmental issues identified on the full environmental assessment form part 2, which I discussed. So while I don't go into detail, in terms of sound land use planning anywhere, not just this project, it makes sense to not put a high contaminant risk land use on top of a highly permeable aquifer that goes directly to our wetland, valuable habitat, and waterways that we use for recreational purposes and water supplies down the road. So yes, you could put in a gas station. Is it the best land use? That's what needs to be considered here. Art. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Margaret Davidson. I'm a resident of Livingston. And really, what I wanted to say is being covered by people who spoke before me.
Louder.
What I wanted to say has been already covered by people who spoke before me. First, I wanted to thank the planning board very much for keeping the public hearing open, because I think that's very important. As people find out more about this project and read about it, we need to have a voice. The residents need to have a voice. I would urge the planning board to make a positive declaration, because as somebody else has pointed out, if this project is so good and so perfect, then we should know about it. There should be a review. The applicant should do a seeker review. And the other thing that also concerned me was what was going to happen to the land across the street. Now, it may be true that it will be snapped up immediately. It may also be true that the very little bit of mitigation that has been planned will be all that happens to it. The tanks will be removed. They will make sure that the land is not contaminated, but that's not enough. You know, it could be snapped up in 5 years while we look at this crumbling building. So I think it's really important that more pressure is put on the applicant to really, you know, maybe make it into a park, make it into parking places, but it shouldn't be left just with the tanks out. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jeffrey Hunt. I live at 21 Green Street in Hudson. Although I'm not a resident of the town of Livingston, I am the president and CEO of the Columbia County Chamber of Commerce. And on behalf of our over 700 members in the county, we are in support of this proposed application. The Global Partners, who we've heard has been operating the Extra Mart in this town for almost 30 years, has operated their facility responsibly as an Extra Mart gas station in Livingston. Their proposal for all-town fresh market and gas station will offer fresh food and beverages options in an attractive new modern setting location, the same intersection as the current location. It will replace the Extra Mart convenience store and gas station. We also understand that the Global will then remove the existing fuel service infrastructure in accordance to state law, in accordance to current state law. Global has completed a full environmental assessment form and additional studies demonstrating how the new location will protect stormwater and groundwater, addressing a variety of other environmental matters. The traffic study Global has commissioned confirms that there will be no traffic impacts. Additionally, Global will add new jobs and seek to partner with local vendors to serve local foods at the store. We appreciate the Planning Board and the town's close look at this project. We know it's new, and sometimes bringing something new requires a little more review. But at the end of the day, on behalf of our Board of Directors, we wholeheartedly support the all-town fresh markets proposal. And I just wanted to read that on behalf of our Board of Directors and the Chamber of Commerce in Columbia County. Thank you.
Any more questions or comments? Okay.
Good evening. My name is David Gordon. I represent Livingston Concerned Citizens. I sent the board by email a letter earlier today. I passed out some hard copies. I sent a copy to Mr. Hilscher. I'm not going to read the letter. I'm just going to very briefly summarize 5 main points in it, just to give you guys a roadmap for the way I think you should be looking at it, and Mr. Hilscher as well. First, the issues of water contamination in the aquifer. We've heard extensively from Paul Rubin both tonight and also in previous submittals. This is a very sensitive location. It drains into, it's on top of an important aquifer, and it drains into wetlands and streams that ultimately head down to Claveret Creek. And it's the wrong place for extensive petroleum facility. Any spill, any accident is going to show up in important environmental resources. And so every measure needs to be taken to make sure that that doesn't happen. Secondly, is the visual impact. And I just want to revisit one statistic that's in the application. The canopy for this project is proposed to be 23 feet high and 129 feet long. That's 43 yards long. That's almost half a football field. It is obvious that a structure of that height and length does not physically fit within a rural landscape. Whatever else you want to say about it, and whatever the perceived business need of it is, it simply doesn't fit. It doesn't fit within the image of the town and the image of this area. And again, a 43-yard long physical structure that is 23 feet high. That's, again, almost half a football field, 23 feet up in the air. That single fact alone indicates that this facility is of the wrong size in the wrong place. The third point I want to make is the allusion to seeker, and the real question for the board at this time, or as you pointed out next month, would be the question of a declaration of significance, either a positive declaration or a negative declaration. A positive declaration under the seeker regulations is what the board would do if it finds that there is potential for at least one significant adverse environmental impact. A negative declaration requires virtual certainty, certification, that there's no potential for any significant adverse environmental impact. It's clear on this application that there is the potential for at least one significant adverse environmental impact. The visual is a good example. The water is another example. There are others in the documentation that's been supplied to you. So in order to process this application, the board will need to do a positive declaration under seeker. Fourth, the existing facility, this has now come about over the last couple of months. It wasn't presented that way before, but the existing facility is really a part of this project. The shutting down of that facility is a condition of the application. And your engineer, the last time I was here anyway, a couple of months ago, asked a few questions, and the applicant didn't have solid answers, and there's been more information. But the critical point is, this facility, the existing facility, the board needs clarity on what it is physically going to be used for, at least in terms of the physical presentation of it. You may not know what business is going in, but you need to know that that facility is going to be maintained in a certain way, and how the land is going to be landscaped. Because that is what, as people pointed out, that's what the town is going to be seeing for the next X number of months or years until there's a new business coming in there. And I do have one question about that. I usually don't ask questions in a public hearing. I usually state what we believe to be the facts. But there's a question that goes back to the origin of the application. As the last gentleman indicated, there was an indication of no traffic impact on this project. And if you look at the documentation, the reason why was essentially this was just going to be replacing, in the eyes of the applicant, this was going to be replacing the existing facility with the new one, and without any expectation of an increase in traffic. I don't know whether that expectation of no increase in traffic is exactly correct. Clearly this is a big facility. But the critical point here is that it's now become clear that the existing facility is not going to be mothballed, it's not going to be deconstructed. It's going to be ultimately reused in some other commercial capacity. And so the presumption that there's going to be no increase in traffic because simply we're presumably just moving, or allegedly, just moving the facility from the south side to the north side is not true. There is going to be an increase in traffic, which is going to be measured by whatever new traffic the larger gas station generates, plus whatever the use is going to be on the existing facility once it gets a second use. Now the applicant may tell you that they don't know what it's going to be, therefore they can't ask that question. But that's not going to be a very good answer for the town when in a few years you're going to find increased traffic there because lo and behold there's a new use of the existing facility. So I think that question ought to be answered in a little bit more depth. The last point I want to raise is on the special use permit. A special use permit is a special category of permitted use. Very often in applications they'll say, well, the special use permit means that it's an accepted use. And under the zoning law, it is an accepted use, but only under certain conditions. And essentially what the conditions boil down to is that the board take a very, very careful look and whether this particular type of use, which is in a special use table, is going to generate adverse impacts on the neighboring properties and the neighboring community. And again, here, the answer is clearly that it will. If for no other reason, that 43-yard canopy that's 23 feet high is clearly going to generate adverse impacts on the neighboring properties. Other impacts as well have been covered in the other submittals and on the water side with Mr. Rubin. So I want the board to take a special look at the special use permit requirements as you go down the road there, because ultimately you want to go past the idea that this is just a permitted use. This is the type of a use that requires a very careful look at the impact on the neighboring properties. In this case, because of the size of this facility, the impacts are going to be very substantial and result in denial of the permit. Thank you.
Anybody else? Ted, Michelle, you have anything you want to comment on? All right, I guess we'll,
After you close the public hearing, we just wanted to give a quick presentation.
okay. All right, well, if there's no
There's
more
no other
questions, we're going to close the public hearing for tonight.
Go ahead. You want to motion?
Yeah, you have to make a motion. Okay, we'll make a motion to close the...
So moved.
Excuse me, point of order, if I may.
Yes.
Why not leave the public hearing open?
Well, it's closed
If they're
for
about
tonight.
No, I understand, but if they're about to make a presentation, why not leave the public hearing open so that people in the room can react, if necessary, to whatever it is?
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Here's going to be that, when's it going to end? You know, we've received a bunch of information today. So what we need to be able to do is respond to that. We're not going to provide any new information that needs additional public comment. Public comment was received. We will then take that public comment into consideration and then provide a response. For instance, with respect to Mr. Gordon's information, everything he provided is a legal analysis. You don't need to have additional public hearing for that. And for everything else that we've talked about, we have provided additional information. The only thing we want to do for the board is just let you know what we submitted last month.
Okay.
So we don't, you know, that was the point. At some point, the public hearing should be closed and we should move on.
You gotta have a vote on closing.
Okay.
So it was, I made the motion, you said.
Right.
Can you just speak louder?
Call for the vote.
We'll call for a vote.
Yes.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
What did you vote on? I'm sorry.
Closing the hearing.
Close the hearing.
Bernie made the motion and Chip seconded it.
You said, Mr. Chairman, I believe you said you were closing it for tonight.
No. It's closing it.
We're closing the hearing tonight. It's closed.
Period.
Forever.
Period.
Wow.
I thought it was going to be, there's going to be another hearing in September.
No.
No, the August is September.
So there's going to be no comment in September.
No.
So why did Global Partners wait until the meeting was over to give information? That seems very strange to me. You know, why wouldn't you do it as part of the public record, the public hearing? So it's televised, so neighbors who couldn't make it tonight can see what their responses are. I'm in shock. Is that really the way it works?
Yes, that's the way it works.
Wow.
People had their chance to speak. How many meetings? How long are you going to keep dragging it out?
I want him to be able to speak. I just want it part of the public record, so everyone can see it.
Good evening, my name is Rob Osterhout with Bowler Engineering, representing the applicant with their application for the new All-Town Fresh Market. We had started this project at the town level back in November with our first planning board meeting. Since then, so that's 10 months ago, since then we've been in front of this board on, I think, 8 occasions to present the project, to take public input. The planning board has graciously allowed the public to speak at pretty much every meeting. So With that, we appreciate the board's consideration tonight, having the public hearing and taking the additional public comment. We've provided a wealth of information to the town planning board here as this process has taken place over the last 10 months. We started out this project at a very early stage with concept plans and very little information. Because it's the beginning of the project, we're seeking input from the town to roll forward. We started off with our first formal planning board submission with a short environmental assessment form. We started off the project with a concept plan, like I said, that has evolved and has grown and developed into a much better plan based on all the feedback that we've received from the planning board and from the public. We've also submitted reports to New York State DEC. We submitted plans and reports to the Columbia County Department of Health, to the New York State Department of Transportation. We've coordinated extensively with the town's consultant engineer. We've had several rounds of review comments from their professional engineering consultant. We've responded to those comments time and time again. We've submitted revised plans on many occasions, additional reports, so there is a wealth of information that has been submitted. And as a result of all of that information, I think there's much more knowledge and information and education that's been out there for everybody to glean from. Some of the information that we heard tonight, I just wanted to touch on. I want to reiterate that this is not a truck stop. And we've heard concerns that there's going to be overnight parking and engines running overnight. This is merely a convenience store, a retail convenience center that will have gas and diesel for the traveling public and for the community. With that, there are laws in place to prevent the idling of trucks. There will be signs on this site to reflect that. We've heard concerns about the existing extra mark station. What's going to happen with that? We have covered that, and I personally feel like we're beating a dead horse on that issue because we've covered it so much. The applicant has graciously agreed to put a deed restriction on that property once they vacate it and have the new facility constructed, so that there will still be one gas facility in this area of town at this intersection. With that, I think it gets lost in the presentation that this facility will be a brand new facility with brand new fuel storage tanks, with brand new stormwater management facilities, with brand new asphalt, with brand new safety measures, with all these new facilities. The standards are much higher. If this project were not to happen, you would be left with an old station, with old tanks, with a site with no stormwater management facilities to treat stormwater. All of the New York State DEC regulations that are in effect today to handle stormwater and to handle all of the petroleum bulk storage and to handle the water supply, those regulations were vastly different years and years ago when this facility was constructed. So you have an opportunity in front of you to have a brand new facility with all the modern conveniences and all the modern regulations enforced at this facility, and you can kind of clean the slate from the old facility and move on and be progressive with a nice new facility in your community here. We have been working diligently, as I mentioned, with the town's consultant engineer, the planning board, and the community, as well as the other regulatory agencies, and we continue to do so. We look forward to moving the project ahead with all the information that we've received. We appreciate everybody's time. It takes a lot of time and energy to come out to these hearings, and that's what this process is about. That's why there is a public hearing, so you can come out and express your concerns, whether you're in favor or whether you're against it. That's what this process is about. So we do thank you for your time and coming out to express your opinions. We look forward to working with the planning board and your consultants moving forward. With that, I'm available for any questions if you have them. Thank you.
Okay, folks, that's the meeting. Meeting's over.
Jerry?
Make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to close the meeting.
Yes, well, soon as.
I'm coming. Need a motion?